Okay, so get this right. Imagine finding out someone elected in your county, like, might not even have qualified to be on the ballot in the first place.
Mm.
That's what Robert Burns is dealing with, and let me tell you, this story gets wild fast.
It's incredible, right? This case really highlights how important those local elections are. The ones we don't always think about. This is Brevard County, Florida, we're talking about.
And at the heart of it is this lawsuit. Burns, this private citizen, going head-to-head with the county's supervisor of elections, Tim Bobanic. And the accusations, this isn't just like, hey, his campaign signs were too big. We're talking missing documents, potential favoritism, even a state rep caught acting up in court.
It really emphasizes how crucial transparency and accountability are, especially when it comes to elections, right? The foundation of our system.
Absolutely. So let's break it down. Burns is accusing Bobanic of some serious misconduct. First up, accepting incomplete candidate qualifying documents, missing dates, forms not filled out completely, and we're not talking about just a few oversights.
This is official misconduct we're talking about. Florida Statute 838.022, accepting these false or incomplete public records is a violation. It makes you wonder, were the rules the same for everyone?
Which brings us to the second big accusation, inconsistent application of those election laws. Burns claims Bobanic wasn't exactly playing fair, suggesting favoritism, maybe even worse.
Now, this is where it gets interesting, because if some candidates are held to a different standard, that undermines the whole idea of a fair election. Not just bad practice, potentially a violation of Florida Statute 104.061, corruptly influencing voting. We're talking about possibly swaying the outcome itself.
And if that wasn't enough, there's more. Burns claims Bobanic lost, or got rid of, the original qualifying documents. Talk about suspicious.
Very concerning, because if those documents are gone, it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to verify anything, to get to the bottom of what happened. Tampering with or destroying evidence, especially public records, that's a crime, Florida Statute 918.13.
Okay, so we've got potential violations stacking up, but what really struck me was this Susan Hodgers. The documents mention her, said she tried to point out these messed up documents. Bobanic himself told her to keep quiet about it.
It really makes you wonder what was going on there. That kind of silence, it can be so damaging, especially when we're talking about elections.
It makes you think, if they're silencing someone for just pointing out a problem, what else are they willing to do? And it doesn't stop there. Burns also says Bobanic basically dropped the ball on his duty to vet those candidates properly, saying he failed at his job, which, as supervisor of elections, is safeguarding the integrity of the whole thing.
Brings us back to potential charges of neglect of duty, Florida Statute 104.051. But depending on exactly how Bobanic dealt with those qualifications, it could even be considered election fraud under Statute 104.091.
So, a whole web of potential violations, each one making this election seem less legit. But here's the thing. Burns didn't stay quiet. He took action.
And that's where it gets even more interesting. He didn't have some big legal team, no political machine, just a private citizen using the system to hold a powerful official accountable. That's a story in itself.
So Burns, he's got what he thinks is solid evidence, right? Ready to, take on the system. Where does he even begin?
It's funny you say take on the system because those emails, it sounds like that's exactly what he had to do. He tried talking to Bobanic directly first, wanted to resolve things without lawyers and all that.
But Bobanic blows him off.
Pretty much. Ignored him. So Burns felt like he had no other choice, had to file suit.
And that's where things get really crazy. He files a writ of mandamus, which, from what I understand, is basically asking the court to make Bobanic disqualify those candidates with the bad paperwork.
Exactly, trying to force his hand. Seems pretty open and shut, you'd think.
Right. So what happened?
Well, as this case goes on, things start getting fishy. More candidates pop up with paperwork issues like they were hidden in plain sight all along, and then the missing documents.
Hold on, wait. The original documents, the main evidence, it just disappears. What? How?
$1 million question, right? The lawsuit talks about how Burns tried over and over to get those documents, public records requests, and every time, nothing. Roadblocks, delays, like trying to find something that's not even there anymore.
Okay, so we've got, what, potentially messed up elections, evidence gone missing, and get this, Kathleen Miller, the one in charge of checking all that candidate paperwork, she gets fired.
And to make it even more suspicious, it happened right after Bobanic supposedly does this big internal audit.
Supposedly being the key word.
Right. Burns asks for the audit findings multiple times, and nothing. Vanished. It's like it never even happened, which, well, that's a big problem.
Okay, so let me get this straight. We've got potentially messed up elections, disappearing documents, a conveniently timed firing, and a maybe it didn't happen audit. This is nuts. This is like House of Cards level stuff.
Right.
But this is real life, right? With real consequences. So what was the final verdict?
Well, get this. The court dismissed Burns' lawsuit.
Seriously?
Yeah, they cited this precedent, the Torres case, basically saying private citizens can't use a writ of mandamus for election law stuff.
So a loophole. They can just get away with it because of some technicality.
Kinda. But the thing is, the judge, in his ruling, even said the case raised some serious questions about elections and Brevard. The court's decision wasn't saying Burns was wrong, just that he couldn't use that specific legal tool.
So the lawsuit might have stalled out, but at least it showed everyone what was going on in the Brevard County Supervisor of Elections office. Which brings us to good old State Representative Randy Fine, one of the candidates named in all this. And from what I've seen, less than exemplary doesn't even begin to describe his behavior.
An understatement, if I've ever heard one. Screenshots, emails, they don't paint a pretty picture of Fine, especially for an elected official.
Seriously, the guy is a piece of work. And we're not just talking about disagreeing or, a heated debate. This is straight up disrespect for how the court works.
Totally. One of the hearings, he shows up online wearing a campaign t-shirt.
You're kidding. A state rep, and he can't even throw on a suit.
Nope. And it gets worse, way worse. Witnesses, the screenshots, they all say he was making obscene gestures at Burns during the proceedings.
Wait, hold up. Are you saying this state rep in court was flipping people off?
Yeah, not exactly what you'd call professional conduct. And if that wasn't bad enough, Burns shared emails where Fine just responds with, "Cry harder, real mature."
Wow. Okay, so we've got this elected official allegedly ignoring court rules, making obscene gestures, sending, playground insult emails. It's one thing to be unprofessional. This is disrespectful to the whole system.
Exactly. And remember, judges have those rules for a reason. Judge Blau's policies for this stuff, which comes straight from the Florida Bar's best practices, they're crystal clear. Dress appropriately, be respectful, act like you belong in a courtroom, online or off.
So it's not like Fine could say he didn't know.
Nope. Those guidelines are public. It's all about maintaining that professional decorum.
Which Fine completely threw out the window, from the sounds of it. But what happens now? Are we talking a slap on the wrist, or could this actually affect Fine's career?
Good question. Burns is claiming Fine broke very specific rules, the Florida Bar's rules of professional conduct stuff that prohibits anything disrupting the court.
So, bigger deal than just being rude.
Right, this could mean professional consequences. And it's not every day you see a state rep facing contempt of court charges. This could seriously affect his political future.
Makes you think about the bigger picture here. We started with election interference claims, then missing evidence, this culture of silence, and an elected official who seems to think the rules don't apply to him.
Exactly. And even though Burns' lawsuit didn't go through, it forced this conversation about election integrity, accountability. Can we trust the people in charge? These are questions that matter everywhere, not just Brevard County.
It's kind of scary when you put it like that.
Mm.
So what can we do about it? How do we even start to fix this to make sure elections are fair?
That's the million-dollar question. It takes a lot of things. Making the election process totally transparent, enforcing the laws we already have, and holding those elected officials accountable when they screw up.
It's not just on them, though, right? We can't just sit back and expect others to fix it.
Absolutely. We all have a part to play. Stay informed, get involved, and speak up when something seems off. That's how we protect our democracy.
It's this deep dive. It's been a wild ride. We've uncovered shocking stuff, dug into legal battles, and really grappled with what this means for our democracy.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
It really is. But if there's one thing I want our listeners to take away from all this, it's this. Pay attention to what's happening in your own backyard. Get to know how elections work where you live. Ask questions. Get involved. The future of our democracy might depend